right, here we are. Welcome to episode number 2 of the Get Ahead with Nick podcast. And I'm going to talk all about my experience with fasting. So, the day after Christmas, I did a 36-hour fast, and I definitely learned a lot from it. So, I'm going to talk about that, and I'm going to interview one of my best friends who did this fast with me. And during that interview, we're going to talk a lot about what we learned, and our experience, how challenging it was. So for now, I'm going to talk about what fasting actually does for you. And one of my favorite parts of what it does for you is it challenges you, and you are forced to sort of explore yourself in a new way. So every single day, we're used to eating at least 3 square meals, sometimes 4 or 5, and we just eat whenever we're even a little bit hungry. You know, our stomach sends us that signal, and we're like, all right, I'm going to go eat something because I have access to food and it's easy. And sometimes we just eat when we're bored, when we're not even hungry. This is not necessarily a bad thing. However, there are a lot of benefits to fasting that can sort of outweigh some of the bad habits of overeating. But specifically, I love the challenge that fasting brought. So after Christmas, the last thing I ate at like 8 p.m. was like a couple little desserts. I don't love desserts. I usually have like a pretty strict, like all meat diet, which we can talk about another time on another podcast, because I support all diets, whatever makes you feel good. If it's a vegan diet, a paleo, a carnivore diet, or something else, I support that as long as it makes you feel good. But anyway, fasting was very challenging, and it makes you uncomfortable to go so long without eating. So as I was saying, my last thing I ate was about 8 p.m. on Christmas, and after that, I did not eat again until about 9 a.m., not the following day, the day after. So it was just over 36 hours. That morning I ate 2 ribeye steaks, and boy, were they good. I mean, it gave me a whole new appreciation for food, having not eaten for that long, because it's just longer than we're used to. But I will talk about that more during the interview. For now, I'd like to stick with talking about how it makes you feel uncomfortable, and without ever getting uncomfortable and pushing yourself to the edge like that, whether it be in your workouts or through a fast or even just at work, with whatever you do with your life, you are not going to ever have an understanding of what you're actually capable of if you do not push that boundary of getting uncomfortable often, stepping out of your comfort zone and doing things that you're not used to. So I definitely learned a lot from that standpoint. And I also really like fasting because it is the ultimate test of discipline. Because if you are in control of the food that you eat, there is nothing else that you can't control. If you know how to say no to the temptation when, let's say, one of your coworkers brings in 2 boxes of Dunkin' Donuts and you're trying to follow a strict diet and you exercised yesterday, you know that that is not the fuel that your body needs. But your brain tries to tell you that I want one of those donuts. I want that quick hit of dopamine, and it'll be delicious, which is true. Of course, it sounds delicious. But if you have the discipline to walk right past and say no when temptation is all around you, then there's not going to be anything that you can't do when maybe you're in a peer pressure situation, or you're just forced to make a tough decision. And we usually know what the right decision is, but it's not always the easy decision. So fasting is the ultimate test of discipline because, again, I'll talk more about this in the interview, but let's just say we were both being tempted, both me and my best friend, Nick. His name's also Nick by chance. We were definitely, there was temptation all around us. I mean, there were Christmas leftovers. We were at our friend's house and there was all sorts of stuff, and his parents were offering us like cookies and all of that stuff. So we'll talk about that in the interview. But lastly, and if you're not familiar with fasting, it's just abstaining from food. that's all that it means. You could still drink things. Like we were still drinking water. Um, we both had tea. He lives down the street. So at like 10 p.m., I ran down. I gave him like this really good tea. It was like apple cinnamon or something. Just so that you at least can enjoy like the flavor of something before bed. It helps. But I also found that I slept a lot better while fasting, and this is clinically proven that you just get a better night's sleep when you're fasting. So that's not a secret or just my opinion. It's true and it works. But let's see. So we talked about the temptation, the discipline. I guess the last thing I want to talk about before we jump over to the interview is what actually happens during a fast. What processes are going on in your body? And they are very interesting. So, one of the first things that happens is during a fast, your body begins to cleanse itself of toxins and it forces cells into processes that would never have been achieved when you're steadily and regularly eating. There are a lot of new processes that are occurring. One of the other benefits, a few of them actually, in order to conserve energy while you're fasting, because your body will quickly realize that you're doing this. So, in order to conserve energy, it's going to speed up your metabolism. Your heart rate and your blood pressure are going to be lowered, and the body is going to go into ketosis, which is when the body begins burning your own fat for fuel. So, this is a great way to lose weight without having to change your whole diet. You could just fast 1 day a week and you will watch the pounds come off because your body will just start burning its own fat. But my favorite process that occurs is called autophagy. And this is when the body starts to cleanse and recycle its sick and dying cells. So picture we all have cells in our body that might not be very healthy, but are hanging on and fighting to survive. And when we keep eating constantly, 3 meals a day, five, whatever we eat every day, these cells are fighting to survive. When you do a fast, the body begins to cleanse itself of these sick and dying cells. And as some of you may know, sick and dying cells often become cancerous and cause other diseases and things such as cancer. So by cleansing your body of these, it enhances your lifespan. And this removal of dysfunctional cells, it just has so many benefits. That's part of the cleansing process that goes on by cleansing yourself of toxins and these sick and dying cells. It's very, very interesting. I encourage you to read up on fasting if you're interested. And if you're looking to do one yourself and want to know more about what I know of it, because I'm not going to get too in depth and bore you, but I just want everyone to understand at least some of these basic principles of what's going on so that you can decide if it's going to be something that's right for you. And it may not be right for everyone. I'm not recommending this. I mean, I am, but not like legally. So just be careful if you're going to do this. Don't say I told you to. This is my own personal experience. Anyway, that's about all I want to cover for now because we're going to go a little bit more in depth during the interview. We'll talk about how challenging it was, what we learned, what we ate after the fast, and answer a lot of the questions that you're probably having right now. So thank you for listening, and let's cut over to that interview. Here we are. So I'm here with one of my oldest friends, Nick Chianca. Nick, great to have you on the show. You're my first guest. How exciting.
I'm honored. I was thinking about that before. I was like, when this all blows up 10 years from now, I'm the first guy.
Exactly. It's a big deal. Hopefully before 10 years, we
Yeah.
just keep putting out content that helps people. That's all we want to do.
Yep.
But anyway, it's great to have you here. How long have we known each other? Maybe our whole lives, minus like before we could talk.
I would say probably like we're 23 going on 24. I'd say probably 19 years.
Yeah, yeah. Pretty cool stuff.
We had school. So
Right.
I think probably 19, 20 years.
It's pretty cool stuff, man. It's great to have you here. So we just did a fast, right? The day after Christmas, we each did a 36-hour fast. And
Boy, it was really something, wasn't it?
Yeah, honestly didn't think I was gonna ever do a fast for more than like intermittent fast, like, oh, just don't eat from like whatever to whatever, but to go over a day of not eating is easier than I thought, but definitely challenging.
Absolutely. It was new to me as well. And I appreciate you joining me on that. But, there was no reason you needed to do it with me. There was no reason I needed to do it, but it's just a
Mhm,
really good test of discipline. I was talking before in the first part of this
mhm,
podcast about how it's the ultimate test of discipline. And
yeah,
I definitely could vouch for that because when we were at our buddy's house, right? We were at Jimbo's house, and
mhm,
it was the day after Christmas. We hadn't eaten in a full 24 hours now, so we were hungry. And his
yeah.
mom brought out all sorts of leftovers and desserts and stuff. So tell us a little bit about how tempted you were, because I know I was itching for one of those cookies.
Well, I know when she brought out the plate, well, one, you know she's gonna bring out something when you go to Mrs. Wynn's house, and when I saw her walking through the sliding door with the plate, I was like, ah, this is a test. And then I know me and you made eye contact a few times when people were grabbing for the cookies. We were just like looking at the cookies, and then like you'd catch me looking at them, or vice versa.
Yeah,
And I think when we were leaving, we said like, I think you said to me, you were like, those cookies look like steaks because of how long we haven't eaten. And I was like, honestly, like they would have tasted better than the steak after like 14 years on an island without anything besides coconut water.
right. I mean, they really, really looked good. And I would say if you could get through the temptation, it's easy because once I went to bed that night, I was fine. I had mentioned, I think I mentioned in the first part of this podcast that like I had some tea before bed, like I ran down some to you. And you just
That
have some
that
tea and you
tea
go to
was
bed and
great.
you sleep good. It's easy when you're asleep, but when you're awake and you're
Yeah,
around food and you're not doing anything, that's when it's hard.
especially because most people, not everybody, but most people have food in the fridge or the pantry, so it's really just as easy as it is to walk to one of those spots to break your fast. But that tea you gave me, I forget exactly what was in it, but once I drank that and I actually tried to lay down, like I drank it right before I was laying down, it knocked me out. It
It's
was
good
definitely
stuff.
definitely help, especially if you're someone like me. It's a little bit. I'm like a little bit like restless leg syndrome, where going to bed will help you not cheat on your fast. And for someone like me that stays up late, that honestly helped knock me out.
It's
And no,
true. That was good. It was like apple cinnamon or something. It had like
yeah.
chamomile and stuff to help you sleep. I'm glad you
So
enjoyed it. So what was it like after your fast? What was the first meal that you had? Was it any different than your usual like feeling about this meal? Tell me about that.
so like I have like an omelet or scrambled eggs like almost every morning, like peppers and onions and chicken, whatever in it. Like usually an omelet of some sorts or eggs, and it's good. It's fine. Sometimes a little bit boring, but you know, I think you share the sentiment when you had your first meal after. It was the equivalent of eating 5 star, like a 5 star Michelin restaurant. Like the eggs just different, and their eggs. It's like the most simple breakfast ever, but
Right.
then it was sad. Like it was like satisfying to eat. Like usually I'll eat my breakfast because eggs are red light, and then I eat it, and I'm like I'm still kind of hungry. Like, what else do we have?
Mhm.
I ate them, and I was still kind of in that disciplined mindset from the fast, where I just ate the eggs, and I was like, 4 eggs with peppers, onions, chicken. I'm like, I'm okay. Like, I don't need to jump into the pantry right now. It also tasted amazing, so I didn't want to go eat some processed foods that are going to just, you know, throw it all off. I was like, this is healthy and delicious.
Right, totally. Yeah, I'm glad the discipline carried over. I mean, it really does carry over into other aspects of your life too. When I
Yeah.
first ate, I had two 1 pound ribeyes, or maybe they were New York strip steaks, but oh my God, they were good. Like they were cooked in butter and they were just seared nicely. It wasn't even the best steak I ever made. I overcooked them a little bit, But when you just haven't eaten in that long, you get a whole new appreciation for food. It's like watching someone on Survivor or something, and the first time they get to like eat a good meal and you see their reaction, and it's just, it hits differently. And that's one of my favorite parts about the fast too, is like the reward at the end. You know, you're delaying your gratification for a later reward. And that's life right there. That's investing. That's everything. If you can delay your gratification for a bigger cause, you're going to have a good life. Um, would you say that you learned anything during this fast? Because I would say that I definitely did. That was the longest I'd ever gone without eating. And it's only 36 hours. It doesn't sound like that much, but it's way longer than you would ever go because we live in the US. We're lucky. We know when our next meal is coming and where it's coming from. So that was new for us. So I think I learned to be a little more grateful for my meals. What about you?
Well, like you said, living where we live, it's like customary to have breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Most times, snacks in between, like every meal, a midnight snack. You wake up in the
Mhm.
middle of the night, like, we're a very gluttonous nation, you could say. You look at the stats compared to other countries, we eat a lot.
Yeah, it's
But
true.
but fasting, it was like, I've been trying to like understand the thing lately where it's like you don't need to eat for pleasure because food is great. We both are Italian. Like there's a lot of passion with food, but you don't always have to be gluttonous when you eat. It's more like this is fuel for your body. Like you put gas in a car, you put food, which is fuel, in your body. And like you've said it before, it's okay every now and then to have a splurge. Like on the holidays, you can dip into the cookies or whatever, but you don't always have to. That's like all I learned through the fast is like as good as those Pop Tarts, or my mom always has candy. You've been in the house. There's chocolate and candy and whatever
Right.
chips. It's like it's great, but then like I eat them, I feel bad that I'm eating them, and then the next day it's like, all right, well I'm gonna go run an extra half mile at the gym, but it's like, or I could have just not eaten those and just did a normal workout and been making better progress. So I think through the fast, I learned that like it's a healthy tactic for so many reasons, but it like sparked this whole discipline. Like you said about working out before the fast to simulate a failed hunt, and then working out at the end to simulate a successful hunt was awesome. It like, because I'm on board with your whole way of thinking about being ancestral. I was like, oh, this is awesome. Like it all proved that you can work out and have a solid workout without eating. I think that's a misconception that you need to have a banana, like a protein shake, pre-workout, all this stuff to work out. It's like you don't, like, you just dig deep and do it. You just get
I
it
like
done.
that. I like that. I'm glad you brought that part up. I didn't discuss that in the first half of the podcast. But it's true. I mean, I got that from the Liver King. That's his thing, is like
Yeah.
when he fasts, and I think he does two 24-hour fasts per week. And every once in a while, he'll do a 5-day fast. I don't think we're there yet, but maybe something to try in the future. Maybe go for 72 hours or something. But it's true. He will begin his fast with a workout, which would simulate like a failed hunt in a way, like back in whatever year it would be when people would live in tribes and they would have to hunt for their food. That's what would happen. I mean, you would put in all this work to maybe be chasing an animal and you fail to get it. And now you've exerted all this energy and you're hungry and you have nothing to eat. So later on, it could be the whole next day, you're going to have to simulate a successful hunt.
Yeah.
And you're going to have to put in more work to get that meal. And that was what we did, because I don't remember exactly what I did, but I certainly ended on a workout because I got up early and I didn't do anything crazy. Sometimes he just does a bunch of push-ups, and even that's a good way to end your fast. Just something to exert energy
Yeah.
and simulate these feelings that our ancestors would go through, and that makes you more grateful and a stronger person as well. But so I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah. Very mental. It's like it's more of your mental
Oh yeah,
strength and your, like you said, your perseverance and your discipline. And I ended the run to simulate like you're chasing down an elk,
sure.
whatever, and you eventually catch it. and then you get to go eat.
Yeah,
So
it's a really good feeling. I'm really glad you did it with me. We'll do it again soon. I'm thinking of making it like my Wednesday thing.
Mhm.
But we'll see what day of the week works out and stuff. But I want to start doing it more often for sure. All right, the last thing I have for you as my first guest, if you, let's say you were on stage right now in front of 1 million people and you could give them one piece of life advice, what
Mhm.
would you tell them?
To when I learned, honestly, I learned this like the past year, and it's helped. I think just do things at your own pace. Like it's good to look at people for inspiration, or motivation, but you shouldn't look at people with jealousy. I mean, jealousy is not healthy, regardless of in any aspect. But every different. You and me are different. We have different parents, different houses, different lives, different schooling. Everyone's different. It's different walks of life. Like walk a mile in their shoes. It's like someone your age may have 6-figure job. They moved down already. They got a fiance, 2 dogs, nice car. Like that's fine. That's great, but that's them. Like you don't know what they've done prior, what they're doing currently to get them to where they're at. Like they've lived a whole different life that has set them up to where they're at. So don't focus on other people. Use it as motivation or inspiration, but don't constantly sit there and be like, well, I'm only doing this. Because I used to feel that way about myself, be like, oh, like they're making money, they're doing things. I'm still figuring out my way. And it doesn't do anything but make you feel bad. So use that as motivation and understand that's really is what it is. Just understand that things go at your own pace. It's your life. If you were supposed to be where they're at, then you would have been their clone. Like you would have lived the same life, and that's impossible. Even if you go to we went to the same schools from kindergarten to high school. We went to different colleges, but I guarantee if we went to the same schools and did everything, it still wouldn't work out the same. So that's and to put it simple, just do things at your own pace. Like you've got your life to live, someone has their life to live. It'll work out as long as you put in the work. But worrying about someone else isn't going to do anything for you.
I really
Don't
like
get
that. I really like that. That's a really good piece of advice. And I'm really excited to ask other people too what kind of advice they have, because if when asked a question like that, I mean, that's a tough question. You came up with a really good answer there. I put you on the spot. But I mean, people are going to have a lot of interesting things to say there. And I'm excited to see
yeah,
what comes for it, because that right there was gold. I'll make a TikTok out of that and I'll put that up for you. And you got anything else that you want to say or discuss about maybe the fast or anything like that? I think we covered a lot. I learned a lot. I hope that maybe we inspire some other people to give it a try. Make sure you talk to your doctor or do whatever you have to do. Don't blame me. Tell me that, that we forced you to do it or something. It might not be for everybody, but it definitely went well for us.
No, the only thing my closing remarks is that, honestly, like from you, I want to mention before because you reminded me when we started doing the fast, it reminded me of when we started doing jujitsu because it's get motivated by yourself sometimes, but it's great when you have someone to lean on. Just
It's true.
fast. You were like, I'm going to fast. Like, and I was like, oh, well, I haven't eaten since then either. You're like, oh, let's do it together. There's accountability to someone to lean on. It's kind of like jujitsu. One day you were just like, you ever given anything to jujitsu? And I was like, kind of, yeah. You're like, we should start it. And then here we are a year plus later and we're still doing it.
Yeah, it's something ancestral as well. I mean, it's part of like our ancestral ways is to sometimes go without food and also to fight and do things like that. So I guess there's just a part of me that's very ancestral, and it was fun to do it. It was fun to do it. We'll definitely do it again, and we'll
Yes, sir.
definitely do this again. We'll get you on the podcast again too.
Yeah. Well, so far I'm the best guest you've ever had.
It's true. It's true. Really good point there. All right, so that's all we got for podcast 2. Make sure you go to my website, go to getaheadwithnick.com. Right now I'm selling a 21-step mental reset program, so make sure everyone goes, checks that out. It's only $50 right now, and it's changed a lot of lives, because if you're not changing your mindset, you're going to struggle, and we got a new year coming, new year resolution time. This is the perfect time to make a change. And lastly, go check out my Instagram, Get Ahead with Nick. TikTok is the same. And you can check out my Twitter. It's just Get Ahead W Nick, because 15 characters or less. So that's all I got. Chi, thanks for coming on here. And let's get ahead.